Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So I'm gonna do another review on today's episode of Days of Our Lives for June 11, 2024. And it really just follows the aftermath of what happened to Konstantin. If you wanted to know what happened to him, check my other video on June 10th, 2024. I just posted that recently, so you can go check them out. So definitely today is an episode based on the aftermath of Konstantin, what happened to him. We're gonna find out what happened to Steve. We're gonna find out a little bit about what happened to Everett. You know, a little bit about him, because the episode is really not so much about Everett slash what's his name, Bobby. You know, I'm actually tired of that storyline since Abigail's own. If you really followed up on the DID storyline back in the day, yeah, I really did not care much about it because it really annoyed me the last time they did it. So yeah, so we're gonna find out a little bit about them and find out about what happened at the mausoleum, what happened with Steve, you know, is he in the hospital? All of that's gonna be answered in this video. All right, so stay with me. Don't forget to like, share, follow, and subscribe to my channel. All right. All right, so the first scene, what we see is Stephanie having a conversation with Marlena. So they're catching up about what's happening with Everett slash Bobby, and you know, if he's, you know, recovering, if he's being evaluated properly, given that he has DID, right? So, you know, I won't really keep you long on this part because that was the focal point of the episode. So, of course, Stephanie, she wants to be there to talk a little bit about Abigail when she had that diagnosis and that she had support. And, you know, Stephanie wants to be there for them, for Everett or Bobby, right? So after that, we go over to Jada and Kayla. They're at the pub and they're having lunch, I think. So, you know, they're catching up. Jada is catching Kayla up to what has happened with Everett. And, you know, they had a relationship, a marriage in the past. So, of course, she reminisced about the moments they've shared, right? So she's concerned, you know, she's concerned about what's happening with him now. Of course, Kayla gives her medical opinion on it, given that her niece Abigail went through that. So, you know, they're catching up. And then Jada receives a call about a shooting that happened at the Kyriakis mansion. So of course she's on her way to go, but then Kayla thinks about Steve because she remembers that Steve was at the wedding. You know, some plan, she was, you know, a little bit aware of that he had a plan going into today at the wedding, right? So of course she's concerned. So both of them, Jada offers to bring her over to there, but then she said the ambulance would have beat her, so it makes sense for her to come to the hospital to see him. So Jada went over to the mansion and Kayla is at the hospital waiting for Steve to come on. So while that is happening at the mausoleum, you know, of course, Alex and Brady, I really don't like how they put down Xander, because they act as if they're, you know, not guilty in anything. They act as if they're, you know, they're far from innocent. None of them are innocent in anything. All of them do them fair share of crime, you know. And I really don't like how they behave, especially Brady, because he behaves as if he's sanctimonious. The way he treats Kristen, not saying Kristen is you know, not a villainess or whatever it is, but the way how he looks down on them, yeah, I don't like that. He's very sanctimonious, giving the fair share crap he pulls over the past years. So they're there, you know, talking about, you know, it could have hit Teresa, blah, 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 blah. So, of course, you know, Xander said, you know, he has the right aim. He's a marksman. So, of course, Brady is snickering and saying, you know, how could he forget? He has a scar to prove it. And then he had to, of course, like all the sanctimonious characters in this show behave, pull up something from the past about what happened when he tried to shoot Eric instead of Marley, you know, and end up shooting Marley, you know. So yes, so of course, you know, Xander is just glad that he ended up getting Konstantin of the picture, and he asked Teresa, how she feels about it and whatever. And so she said she just is saying like, she can't believe, she's playing that damsel in distress role really good today, huh? So yeah, she said that she said that she can't believe that Xander shot Konstantin. So yeah. So of course in the next scene, they're still wondering who that accomplice is, and they still think it's a guy. And of course Teresa is there, just silent as ever, because she knows she's guilty as hell. She knows she has the answer for it, right? So of course, they're still pondering who it could be. Who was Konstantin talking about? So while that is happening, we go back to the hospital. And that is where Stephanie and Marlene are still talking about Everett. And then John come in, and John fill them in on what was happening at the Kirakis mansion. He tells Stephanie that her dad is in the hospital. He got grazed. So of course she went over to him. And, John and Marlene catch up privately about what's happening and how John was influenced by that pawn card from yesterday's episode, and how he really needs help with that. So hopefully they get through with him with that. Back in the hospital room with Steve and Kayla. Kayla was there, and Stephanie came in, and he filled them in on what happened at the mansion. And of course, Kayla is not happy about that, because if you watch the other episodes, or if you were able to watch it, she was angry about what happened with Steve regarding Clyde and him wanting to go to Montana to face him. So she was tired of being left in the dark about a lot of things. And of course, Steve, in his defense, he wants to protect her from that nature. He don't want her involved in what he has to do for a living. Of course, he sent out Stephanie to get a pastry for him so that he and Kayla can talk. Of course, Kayla gave him the riot act as usual, and he explained what it is about. And of course they got to reasoning in the end. So that was it with them. Then we go back to the mansion again, and everybody is just tired of the scenery. They just want to go home. So then before they could go off, Jada is there. Jada wants to know what's happening. She noticed that there's a cover in there, so she noticed that it's a dead body, it's Konstantin's body. So she wanted to know what's happening, so she asked all of them what happened. Of course they were silent at first, and then of course at some point somebody, Brady, he filled Jada in on what happened at the mansion, how it took place. And of course at the end Xander, he said, he was taking too long, so Xander just cut to the chase and tell Jada exactly bluntly what happened, what he had to do, right? So then, there comes a conversation about Brady and Alex thinking that Xander did not have any crucial care for Teresa and her safety. He was just, guns a blazing. So then, Jada asked Teresa how she felt, and of course Teresa played into it. So Xander was the one that was sold under the bus again by his so-called cousin, so-called family. I don't think they really treat that man very well. Again, I'm a big Xander fan. Can you blame me? He's handsome. But anyways, he can't do no wrong in my book. I'm sorry. But yes, so Jada took him in for questioning, which is unfortunate. Because if you backtracked in the last episode, Alex said they got it handled, but they didn't get it handled because he still had Konstantin still had Teresa hostage, and then it just I don't know, it just didn't work out. So Xander had to stand on business, and that's what he did. So Jada took in Xander for questioning, and he was defending what he had to do, and then he was asking her if he's gonna get charged for this, because it really was an act of self-defense in a sense. So she said she's gonna relay that to the DA and see how it works out for him. Sarah comes there, and he feels Sarah in on what's happening. Sarah asks him if he really, if it was an act of revenge or da 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 da. And, that was where it ended there. So to make a long story short, he did get off those charges. The DA was, very graceful to let him go, and I was happy about that. So there was this part where Brady and Teresa is alone in the mansion, and Brady was tending to her. She said her neck was hurting, asking how she feel, checking up on her. And, she's surprised because, of course, in the other episode, she gave him the boot because, she wanted Alex to come back in her space and everything. And then, but he said, regardless, they have a child together, so he's always going to care for her. So Alex him swoop in at some point and say, he checked on Maggie and see if she okay, filled her in, and then basically he tell Brady to get the boot. So Brady asked Teresa if that's what she wants. She said it would be best to do that. So of course Brady gone about in business. So two of them, they're chopping it up, and then they go to the bedroom quarters, to just really be alone, given the circumstances of everything that has happened. Again, this couple is ad nauseum for me. It's nauseating for me to see, to watch. I really don't like Teresa. I really don't like Alex, especially since he got that inheritance. He act as if he is better than anybody there, and he feel like he doesn't really utilize the money well, in my opinion. And I don't think he's Victor. Like, he doesn't for me, it doesn't represent Victor well. Xander would be a better fit, and I'm not trying to be biased because I'm a Xander fan, but yeah, I don't think he really cuts it being a Kyriakis heir to me. Xander was that person, cutthroat, bold. He didn't care. He has a lot of wits. He has charm. He's good look. Listen, that is Victor's son. That more is an embodiment of Victor's son. I don't care who have a different opinion. He is the embodiment of Victor's son more than Alex. Alex is just the player. He needs to just focus on that. He really does not represent a businessman, an heir, a CEO, nothing at all. Because look at it this way. I don't think Brady is cut out to be it. He's just not cutthroat enough. Philip is very delicate. He has a lot of mental struggles and all of that. I don't see him as like the CEO type. Sonny is really a nice, gentle soul. I don't think he embodies Victor. And you got Justin. Well, Justin is just legal counsel, but I still don't think Justin fits that kind of thing, right? I don't know anybody else that was cutthroat apart from Deimos, that one that died. Yeah, he was close to it. Yeah. So there was the ending where Xander was looking at the picture of Victor, and he was saying that he did it for him and hope that he can rest in peace. And I thought that was, a great ending to the episode for sure. So yeah, this is the end of the review for June 11, 2024. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode review, and don't forget to like, follow, share, subscribe to my channel. Bye.